Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Azzarra, and I'm a professional opera singer and voice teacher. And today I'm going to be reacting to and analyzing Sohyang's performance of Bridge Over Troubled Water. A lot of you have requested her, and as always, Clau and I are taking notes and taking notes. We're paying attention to what you suggest and recommend, and we are writing it down and getting to it. Eventually, you've all requested her, so let's get started.
소향입니다.
Oh, she's beautiful. So right off the bat, you know, in competition and in a lot of performances, songs are just written to have a big hairpin crescendo throughout the piece. Like, it'll start small, it will build emotionally and dramatically, and then it will taper back down. I don't think that that is a reason for what I see a lot of singers doing, which is making it very breathy in the beginning because they can't produce a healthy pianissimo. You need to be able to have your core sound while you're singing at the beginning of a song. Even if you want it to be less intense dramatically or softer, it still needs to be 90% core sound and not 90% breath. She's keeping it really breathy. Y'all know I'm not a fan of that. I think it's a little bit of a cop-out. I do still hear a fair amount of core, but it's a lot of breath. So let's keep going and see what happens. Okay, that was absolutely beautiful. She's using more core sound now, so we know that that wasn't just a cop-out, that she was using a lot of air. Just a musical choice that I personally am not fond of, but luckily was not a sign of her not having a good voice. It's a really clean, pure mix with a little bit, I think, a little more heavy into head voice than into chest. Just a bit. And her English is really, really good. Not that that is a huge deal, but it's always nice to see it when you're singing in a language that's not your native language, and you do it exceptionally well. So let's keep going. So we see now she's moving into the second verse, and she has a lot more chest in her voice. It's nice to see her make such a clean transition into a different ratio of chest and head voice. Very, very clean transition. You see she's curling in a little bit. I don't know if it's for dramatic effect or if she's wanting a little bit of help raising her diaphragm and using more air while she's using a little bit more of a chesty sound. I've talked about it in the past with Luis Miguel. When you crunch in your floating ribs, put pressure on your diaphragm and help it or manipulate it into ascending faster, which also makes more air expel from your lungs. So I don't know. She could be doing it just because you see a lot of singers going down and it looks emotional, or she could be doing it because it's a technical thing. Either way, it's totally fine. Okay, so she just did something really interesting and extremely sophisticated when she sang bridge, which has a pretty closed vowel in it, an open I vowel. She jumped back into having heavier head resonance. Let's listen to it. And I believe she's doing this because when you belt with unmodified vowels on closed E's, on closed I vowel, little I and tall I vowels, it can sound really nasal and very strident, and it can stick out of whatever phrase you're singing. Just listen and you'll hear her jump so quickly back into head voice, or into a more head-heavy mix. Heavier chest. Do you hear her jumping back into that heavier head mix? Really, really sophisticated and nuanced trick just to keep everything really lined up. The thing that I'm noticing most is that whether she's singing with a heavier head voice or a heavier chest voice, and throughout her range, excluding when she's extremely breathy, the voice sounds exactly the same throughout. I can listen to any part and be like, yeah, that's Sohyang. Now that I'm familiar with her voice, it all sounds just like her. It's a very, very even voice. So I'm noticing in a couple of spots that her tongue is pulling back. A little bit like that. It's usually not a healthy place when the tongue is being pushed back like that, because the tongue, it's sort of like your head bone's connected to your neck bone, and on and on and on. The base of your tongue, when it pulls down, also artificially, not artificially, I mean, it's actually happening, but it manipulates the voice box into a lowered position, but it does so through extensive pressure. So not the healthiest way to achieve a lowered laryngeal position, which you don't even necessarily want when you're belting. But I also noticed that when she finished phrases, her tongue was back into a flat and forward position behind the teeth. So I feel like she's at least aware of the problem. And listen, every singer on the planet has tongue tension. Everyone. I have never met a singer in my life that has not at some point experienced tongue or jaw tension. So the only thing that you can do is be aware of it, be cognizant of it, and correct it as you go. It's just one of those things. It's involuntary. So it seems like she's correcting it as she goes. And, you know, it didn't really sound like it was affecting her voice very much. And tongue tension won't for a long time. You know, if you keep it in check, tongue tension won't affect your sound. What does affect your sound is if tongue tension goes unchecked for an extended period of time. It's, you know, your voice will degrade the longer you go with unchecked tongue tension. But if you're keeping an eye on it, it's not going to make a huge difference. Not a difference at all, really. Great positioning there, and you see it pulling back. Yeah, so it started out in a great position and it pulled back just a hair. This is really nitpicky. I mean, she sounds really beautiful, really fantastic voice. Her head voice is so silvery and clean. It's like a bell. See how it's just pulling back a hair? Wow, she has such a beautiful voice. And again, it's so even from top to bottom. It's so even. Different colors come out, you know, depending on where she is in her range. Like I said, it sounds very bell-like when she's at the top of her head voice or towards the top of her head voice. And that middle register, whether the belt is more head heavy or chest heavy, it's so beautiful and it's so her, so even. She doesn't sound like she's a different voice when she switches over into a heavier chest belt. She just sounds the same with just different colors, and it's really beautiful. The core sound is the same. And I also noticed that she's really great about keeping an inner smile with her cheeks lifted. Whether or not her teeth are showing, her cheeks are lifted, which just helps keep the soft palate raised and keep the zygomatic arches, not that they actually lift, but feeling as if they are lifted, which keeps your jaw relaxed. Really, really wonderful performance. Thank you so much for introducing me to her. As always, please like and subscribe and comment your suggestions. Even if I'm not replying to all of them, I am making note of the singers that you suggest. We keep a Google Doc. We keep a Google Doc. And we're writing down all of your recommendations. If you found this video informational or helpful at all, like, subscribe. There's plenty more coming from Clau and I. And as always, toi 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 until next time.